They operate in complete darkness. We had somebody on, Rick Santorum, on last week, and I asked him, shut down the Fed, and he said, well, I wouldn't. Really? Shut them down. They have no idea what they're doing. It kind of makes you look at things and wondering why we're into regulation about absolutely everything except the Fed. Not that I want to regulate the Fed, I want to get rid of them, but that's a different story. He understands this probably better than anyone else. He is now in Des Moines, Iowa, Republican presidential candidate, Texas Congressman Ron Paul. Congressman, how are you, sir?
Doing well, thank you, Glenn.
I've said that this today is going to end in one of four ways, and the one way that it could end is with renewed prosperity, but it would go through austerity. We would have to make the cuts, we would have to keep taxes low, and then we would have to deregulate all of the citizenry, the exact opposite of what everybody in Congress has been doing and the president has been doing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would add one thing, though. In order to get to that point where you start doing the right things, you have to get rid of the mistakes, which is called getting rid of the malinvestment and the debt. An economy doesn't grow when it's overly burdened by debt and the mistakes made previously due to the business cycle. So you have to liquidate that. Then you go to this of having sound money, limited taxes, limited regulations, and we could get back to growth again. The problem is nobody wants to allow the correction to come, and we're prolonging the agony. We're piling on the economy, and that's why we're 3 to 4 years into it already, and there's no signs of strong recovery. So until we do that, you can expect the economy to get much worse.
Do you see any sense in Washington of people cutting the debt? I mean, I know Jim DeMint has come out and said, cut it. He wants don't put the debt, don't raise the debt ceiling. I know you're against raising the debt ceiling. Don't raise the debt ceiling. Let's get serious about debt. With an exception of a few people, do you think anybody's going to do that in Washington?
No, they'll raise the debt limit, whether it's temporary or long-term, but I don't think they're going to go past August and not raise the debt limit. So I think that's going to happen, which will just encourage the spending again. So, but they can't come together on how they want to cut spending, because one group thinks that you can't possibly cut a penny from overseas spending, and the other one says you can't cut a penny out of entitlement system. And I just happen to believe you should be able to cut both, and I don't think for a minute it would hurt our national defense. I think, our defense is not strong because we're spread too thin around the world. But to get that agreement is going to be very, very difficult. And for that reason, I predict that we're going to continue downhill. The deficit is going to be the burden that we can't handle, and that we will eventually have a currency destruction, because we do rely on the Federal Reserve. As long as the Federal Reserve, I call a facilitator. They claim it's the Congress. They spend too much money and they're forced to do these things. But if the Fed couldn't create money out of thin air to buy Treasury bills, Congress would be forced to do something, because interest rates would rise, and that would be very, very harmful. So it would be on the Congress's shoulders to do something. But instead, we keep spending, and the Federal Reserve accommodates, and they say, well, we can't let interest rates go up, so they just print like crazy. It's pretty amazing that it's worked this as well as it has for so long, but it doesn't mean it's going to last forever. And I think that's why people are so upset in this country, because more and more people are starting to realize that this is coming to an end, and it's probably not in the too distant future.
May I ask you one question I haven't been able to figure out? I think the Ford Foundation and the Ford Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation have done more damage to this country than I think a lot of people combined. The money that they had at the time that they just poured into all of these things came from a system of no income tax, where the rich were getting richer. Vanderbilt was the same way. They did a lot of great things, and there were people like Carnegie, who was absolutely fantastic. Without a virtuous and moral people, which our founders said we had to be or the system wouldn't work, without a virtuous and moral people and no regulation, is there any way to stop capitalism from just being god-awful ugly?
Well, I don't like to think of capitalism as being ugly, but I think what you're talking about is the consequence we have.
Here, wait. Here's exactly what I mean, and maybe you can answer directly. What I mean is what de Tocqueville talked about, that there would be people that would become so rich that they would kick the doors closed for others. Soros is doing it now. He's kicking the door closed for other people. When these people like Rockefeller got so wealthy, that's what they did. Is there any regulation on that?
Well, I think some did and some did not. Now, Carnegie gave him a lot of his money back, and I don't think Bill Gates as a monster, and I don't think of Warren Buffett as a monster. So it has to do with the morality. Yes, that's the part I agree with you, the morality of these people. But even if there were no income taxes and they got very, very wealthy, if they didn't cheat, if they didn't get benefits from the government, being very, very wealthy, there's nothing wrong with that. But if they get very, very wealthy because they get contracts from the government, or they get loans, low loans from the Federal Reserve, and the banks get bailed out, and they do all the gambling, and they're the ones who get the bailouts, and the little people lose their homes and their jobs, then it's a rotten system. But I don't call that capitalism. I call that cronyism, or lending itself toward fascism. So that to me is a lot different than free market capitalism. I like to use the word free markets because capitalism, people get a little bit confused on that and think it is, some people have painted it as a very bad term. So I want free markets. I don't want the government giving any favors. Under those conditions, the consumer becomes the dominant force. They determine everything, what the prices should be, what the wages should be, and what the products should be, and who survives and who doesn't, not the government.
Okay, real quick, because I've only got 30 seconds. Where do you stand on Israel, sir?
Well, I stand with Israel like I stand with all countries. I think we should be friends with all countries. I think that we should always aim to have everybody as our best friend, like we have Canada. We trade with them. We travel back and forth. We don't give them money. We don't promise them anything, and we do quite well. So I think that if you teach countries to be dependent on us, that they become dependent economically or even militarily, it does them harm. Because why worry about Israel right now because of what's happened in the Middle East and us going bankrupt?
My apologies to Congressman Paul. We had to cut him off because of the network break. But we want to move on to one of the worst floods in one of our cities' history here in America. Did you even know it was happening now? The Soares River near Minot, North Dakota, crested today at a record 1,561 feet above sea level, marking the worst flooding in 40 years. Have you been hearing where's FEMA? Where's the FEMA truck? I haven't heard that. I don't remember hearing that in Joplin either. Where's FEMA? Where's the president? Instead, after 11,000 people were evacuated from their neighborhoods closest to the river, shelters were set up at Minot State and other locations, and they have taken in only a few hundred people. Why? Well, because the other 10,000 or so have been taken into the homes of their families and their friends and their neighbors. For the rest of the country, that's kind of mind-boggling. But that's how we are in North Dakota, said Senator John Hune. Now, I don't know if you realize this, but that's the way we're supposed to be. A Facebook page called Minot ND Flood Help has been set up, gathering postings from hundreds of volunteers looking just to do good. The community is mobilized to help itself, neighbor helping neighbor. This is not the collective salvation or social justice nonsense preached by the left. This is what was taught by Jesus. Help each other. Don't ask the government to do it for you. Beyond that, this is how we're going to save our nation. There is a great article on a website of a friend of mine that I want you to read today, James Robison. You can find his website, James Robison. It's right there. It's right at the bottom of your screen. The article is titled, What, Not Who. Here's just a sample. Already many candidates and major media are moving full swing into next year's elections. We must first understand what must be done before we can identify who can be the best help to do it. Christians, pastors, and church leaders must totally reject the lie that separation of church and state means people of faith remain silent, uninformed, and uninvolved. Those who recognize truth and stand for it can turn the tide. Our nation's founders knew the limits of the Constitution were placed on the government, not the people or religion. The right to stand up and support first principles is both a privilege and a responsibility. True freedom grants citizens the right to choose, and we have a responsibility to choose right. We choose to stand. We choose to help. We make the difference, not the government. The left is using the insidious lie that big government is what Christianity is all about and what our faith is about. It is not. Big government is not about what America is all about. Nothing could be further from that truth. We'll be talking much more about this as we finish up our last, now 3 shows in 10 minutes here on Fox. But this is not the end. It is only the beginning. We have some special things coming for you, so make sure you stay in touch. Go to glennbeck.com and find out how. Back with just a couple of questions from our audience in a minute. I just want to do this is one of the last 3 audiences that we'll have here at Fox, and I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes taking questions on anything. Yeah, your name is Randy.
Randy. Restoring courage in reference to Americans. If you had to pick one word, what courage do they need to restore?
Well, it's a hyphenated word. Self-reliance. Need to believe in yourself. That you make the difference, and know why. Yeah, somebody gave me some great advice once when I was actually 16 and I just got into radio, and he said, "Fools break the rules." He said, however, once you truly understand why the rules are created, then you can break them, and then it puts you in a different category if you know why you're breaking the rules. Just to be rebellious, just to say, I'm self-reliant, and you don't really mean it because you don't really even understand what that means, you're a fool. We have to have the courage to look at ourselves and say, where am I not self-reliant? What am I not doing? What do I not know? How many people learned about history, stuff you never knew, because I did in the last 2 years, stuff I never dreamt I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. So we have to become self-reliant in all ways, and that takes a lot of courage, Sandy.
I send out CDs, DVDs.
Hang on, go ahead.
I send out CDs, DVDs to people, emails. I send them your web all the time.
Yep.
Got prayer groups going. We're praying for our country. Be like, there's something else I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. I mean, it's like I want to
That's
get
up for
even
you
more.
to figure out what that is, but
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't give up. That's the thing. People get frustrated right before you win. The guy who's Joshua Charles, he wrote a book with me, Original Argument. #1 New York Times bestseller this week. Coincidence? You decide. The week that CNN comes out with Fareed Zakaria that says the Constitution should be rewritten, and Time magazine comes out and says the Constitution isn't even relevant anymore, we come out with a book, and it's the #1 New York Times bestseller on the original argument. What was the Federalist argument all about for the Constitution? I think that's divine providence myself. But he almost gave up. He came this close to giving up, trying to get that manuscript to me. Just before you win, you give up. Don't give up. That's the key that we all have to do, because we're, just before Washington crossed the Delaware, they were going to turn and run, but it was Thomas Paine who wrote, "These are the times that try men's souls," because the whole country, Congress had already fled. They were ready to run and cave, and they didn't. He crossed the Delaware, he beats the Hessians, and the rest is America. Back in a second. On tomorrow's program, we're going to spend a little more time on this. This is one of our, Jack, what is it, 3 shows left starting tomorrow? Yep, 3 shows left starting tomorrow. You change that for me, Jack? And so I want to just spend a little bit more time on this because the evidence is overwhelming that what people said was crazy is happening. And what does it mean to you? 3 shows left. Final episode is on Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow, same time. From New York, good night, America.